you can start whenever.
Okay. And what's the date today?
March 1st.
March 1st. All right. Good evening. I'd like to bring the village board meeting to order. It is March 1st at 7:36. Do we have a quorum, Sarah?
We do. All members are present.
All members of the village board are present. And has this meeting been publicly noticed?
The meeting has been posted and noticed according to law.
Excellent. Our first, then we'll just jump into our first special order of business, which is 4A, to consider a Little League request for electricity for live streaming. Rebecca?
Good evening. I believe that a Mr. Ian Berry is also on the phone this evening. He is the one who submitted the request. Ian, if you're here, if you want to turn on your camera.
I will do that now.
There you go.
Okay. Says that the host had stopped the, oh, there we go. Okay, hi.
Hi, welcome, Ian. I'll let you introduce the item in the request from Shorewood Little League.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for having me. Yeah, so we last year with the pandemic, we did have a season. We started about 2 months later than we normally would in late June, and I had a series of protocols in place for COVID safety measures, and that included limits on spectators at Specter Field. We tried to limit the number of parents that were there. One thing we'd like to do this year, and we talked about this last year, was having a camera on the field. This is becoming more common for youth sports organizations, and we talked a little bit about that last year. Didn't really have the time to make it happen, but it was kind of in the context of wanting to be great for some parents and others to be able to view the games remotely. This year, we're not certain about what exactly the protocols will be. We will have COVID protocols in place. Regardless of whether we have limits or not on spectators, we'd like to provide this option for families and parents and grandparents that maybe would feel more comfortable, that want to see their child play, but would feel more comfortable watching remotely. So we looked into a few options on that, settled on Live Barn, and the way they operate is people who are interested in watching these games, there's one camera behind home plate, and people would pay $15 for a subscription to view the games. And the Live Barn handles the installation. And one of the things that was appealing to us is once it's up, we don't have to mess with it. Really, it's they handle most of the work on this, and then we let it go. The main thing we're asking from the village is just permission to plug this in. It'll use a small amount of electricity. They've told us that the cameras, the feed only is operating when there's activity on the field. When there's not, the camera's shut off. And yeah, that's about it.
Thank you so much for the explanation. Does any board member have questions? Trustee Carpenter and then Trustee Warren.
I don't have any questions. I just wanted to say that I think this is a great option for families and for parents and people outside of the state who want to have an opportunity. And this is something that other activities are doing for kids to be able to share what they're doing, especially right now and beyond. So this is something that I would support.
Thank you, Trustee Carpenter. Trustee Warren?
No, I think this is a great idea, and I'm very supportive of allowing you to proceed with implementation of it. I just had a couple of quick questions. I'm assuming that this is something that's meant to be a permanent solution as opposed to a temporary solution. That is, it's kind of an improvement that will go forward even when we're out of this COVID environment. And I was also kind of wondering, so you pay $15 for a subscription. Does that mean you can view the cameras at any time, or is it just limited to kind of when games are on?
I believe it's limited to when games are on, because there will be no feed when there's nothing happening at the field.
Okay.
And to your other question, yes, the agreement with Live Barn is that we would have the equipment up for 6 years, and so we're hoping to do this to get it up, and hopefully don't have to worry about it too much once it's up. As you mentioned, as Jessica mentioned, grandparents, we have a lot of grandparents from outside the area as well, and so we're hoping that some of them can utilize this.
No, thank you. I think that's fantastic, and I think it's a great idea. It allows more loved ones to watch Little League games, so I'm fully supportive of it.
Thank you, Trustee Warren. Trustee Stokbrand, and then Trustee Bockhorst.
Apologies if I missed this in the packet. Has this been run by DPW?
Rebecca?
DPW has confirmed that there is an outlet at this location that could be available for this use.
And they have no issues with the install. Obviously, they need a lift truck, and everything's been.
We will not be doing the install. The village will not be doing the install. My understanding is that is something that just plugs into the outlet. Is that correct, Ian?
Yeah, that's our understanding.
But it would have to be up pretty high, right?
Yeah, we have. I mean, they'll certainly need a ladder, but we've gotten up there ourselves. Actually, Trustee Ursink has gone up and installed speaker systems up at the top of the backstop, and so I'm sure that they have a professional crew that will be able to handle that pretty easily.
Thank you. It sounds like a great idea. No further questions.
Trustee Bockhorst?
Thank you. So I, as well, I'm fully supportive of this. Just a perfunctory question regarding the broadcasting. I imagine that this is something, and forgive me if I missed this, that the all families, do they have to sign on to, or how do you get away with those kind of waiver requirements regarding broadcasting children?
Yeah, we're going to send a waiver to all parents to sign and make them aware that this is happening, and to advertise it as something we're offering, and also let them know that we're planning to do this, and there will be a waiver that they will all sign. There will also be a sign, relatively small sign, but it'll be behind home plate that'll be visible, informing families that players on the field will be videotaped.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Bockhorst. Trustee Ursink?
I just want to mention that with my involvement with Shorewood Little League, I'm just going to be recusing myself from the vote tonight.
Okay, thank you so much. Does anybody else have questions from the board? If not, Rebecca, I'm sorry if I missed it. Is this precedent setting, and is there anything from, I know they asked about DPW, but is there anything from the administration that has any worry about setting a precedent for the future?
No, not at this time.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm supportive of it too. So Trustee Carpenter, and then Trustee Warren, and then Trustee Stokbrand.
I am ready to make a motion. So I move to approve the Shorewood Little League to utilize the electricity at River Park for the purpose of live streaming.
Second.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Trustee Carpenter, a second by Trustee Bockhorst. Any further discussion? Trustee Stokbrand, did you have your hand up?
I was just, we did the same thing with the Menorah electricity situation at Atwater, right? They got to use the outlet.
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you.
Okay, with no further discussion, we have a motion and a second. Sarah, would you like to take the roll?
Yep. Trustee Carpenter,
Aye.
Trustee Bockhorst,
Yes.
Trustee Stokbrand,
Aye.
Trustee Warren,
Aye.
Trustee Amenta,
Aye.
President Rosick,
Aye.
and Trustee Ursink is recused.
Okay, so the vote is
6-0.
0 and one recused. Okay, thank you. So we will now move on. Congratulations, and hope your season goes well.
Thank you very much.
We will now move on to our second special order of business, which is 4B, consider resolution 2021-07, approving a single or multi-year capital budget to purchase large apparatus equipment for 2022, 2023, 2024, and 2025. Mark or Rebecca.
This will actually be Chief Whitaker. Thank you for joining us, Chief Whitaker.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So what's in front of you is a 4-year contribution to one of our 4 ways that you as the village contribute to the fire department financially. There's the operating fund. We have a small capital fund. We have a debt service fund, which is primarily our facilities. And then there is the one contribution you're looking at tonight that is called a single or multi-year capital budget. That's for large rolling stock vehicles and things of that nature. So this has been a contribution that all the 7 communities have made since 2012, but it does require a renewal every couple years. So the renewal at this point is for 2022 through 2025. The recommendation from the North Shore Fire Department Board of Directors comes to the village, and that required a unanimous recommendation. So that is what had occurred from the Fire Department Board, but it goes to each municipality for your consideration now before it can be approved and we can enact it. Brown Deer, Bayside, Glendale, River Hills, Whitefish Bay have considered it as of date. You're considering it tonight, and Fox Point, I believe, is doing it later this week or next week. So in your packet on page 110 of the electronic packet that I'm looking at, there is a chart that shows what your contribution level is. For the 4 years, the contribution level for this, as with any other fire department contribution, is based on equalized value of improvements, population, and calls for service. And that's divided, it's weighted, and then it's divided and averaged over 5 years, and there's a 5-year phase in, and then every 5 years it gets recalculated. So your percentage of contribution in 2021, which you've already approved, so you're considering something tonight for starting in 2022, your percentage is 17.46% in 2021, and because of how that formula calculates out, you'll go to 17.42% in 2022, and you'll see in that chart it moves out to 2025. So with that, with the funding, we intend to use it to purchase a fire engine, 2 ambulances, and a quint, which is a ladder truck and a pump, over 4 years. Each of those purchases, because of its size, needs to go in front of the board for approval as far as the contract for that specific purchase. This is the funding mechanism to pay for those things. Included in your contribution calculation is a 2% increase annually to account for cost increases that we generally see through vendors on an annual basis. So with that, I would take any questions.
Thank you, Chief. Does any board member have a question? Trustee Carpenter?
I just had one question about the percentages. So it looks like our percentages are going down, from 2022 or 2023 on. You mentioned, how that's calculated. So I'm just wondering, are you predicting that our population will decrease? What is factoring into that decrease in percentage?
Sure. So that is based on historical data up until 2020. And so it probably, my assumption, and I'm not looking at that in front of me, but sometimes your numbers, it's your percentage of the whole is the best way I can describe it. So your percentage, your population may not have changed, but the whole of the 7 may have changed. So that adjusts the percentage then you contribute, or your equalized value changed. And so your percentage of the whole, someone else went down or up, and adjusts that. So it's intricate, and then it's divided by 5. And then each year, so let's say your total change was $20,000, then it's divided by 5. So that amount is divided over $4,000 a year. But I'm using dollars. actually percentages. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? It's a complicated question. I'm hoping to answer somewhat simply here.
I think so. You know, I'm assuming once we pass this that we're committed to this through 2025. So if there was a shift in population in our village, in either direction, we are committed to this percentage.
Right. So those percentages through 2025 are locked in.
Right.
In 2025, there will be a recalculation of
Sure.
everyone's percentage, and then for 2026 through 2031, that another 5 years will be used. So you're always looking at 5 years historical. So this is using data that is up to 5 years old right now, actually 6 years old.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Trustee Carpenter. Trustee Stokebrand and then Trustee Ursink.
Chief, did you say you divide by 5? I was assuming it'd be by 7 because of the number of municipalities.
It's by 5 years.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Trustee Ursink.
Is this a question for Mark Emanuelson? Just wanted to know how this reflects our current budget or our projections into the next several years. Are we on track with this, or does this add to our budget?
An impact.
Oops, sorry, you had a blip there. Could you repeat that?
I say this type of adjustment is anticipated, so it really shouldn't have a significant impact.
Thank you.
Thank
One of
you.
the things I'll note real quick is, so the 2021 contribution is already in your budget. You're paying that this year, so the increase is really a 2% increase for next year.
Great.
Trustee Warren and then Trustee Menta.
I think I'm ready to make a motion here. I move to approve resolution 2021-07, approving a single year or multi-year capital budget to purchase large apparatus equipment for 2022, 2023, 2024, and 2025.
Second.
We have a motion by Trustee Warren, a second by Trustee Carpenter. Trustee Menta, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask the chief what comments he had gotten from the firefighters about the new station, and if they're comfortable there and how that's working out.
All very positive. And you have people who I think you all know, you have sometimes employees that you don't expect to hear comments from at all, and sometimes you expect to hear negative comments from, and sometimes you'll hear positive comments from. And so I've heard positive comments from people that I would say either don't comment on things at all, or sometimes have more negative comments. So I guess what I'm saying is they're very happy.
Oh, good, glad to hear it.
I do have one question before we take the roll call. And Chief, what happens if, like, inflation, you said it goes up 2%. That's every year we budget 2% increase. And I just never asked this question before. What happens if the inflation and the cost is actually 1.5% more? Where does the savings, because you collect from the taxing units, right?
Yeah, so normally if the prices were less than what we would anticipate here, since we are projecting out almost 4 years to make some purchases, that rolls in this fund for future use. And so the next round of, let's say, 3 to 4 year purchases, we would use that and then reduce the total request from the municipalities based on that savings.
Okay, thank you. All right, do we have any other questions or comments? If not, Sarah, go ahead and take the roll.
All right. Trustee Warren.
Aye.
Trustee Stokebrand.
Aye.
Trustee Amenta.
Aye.
Trustee Backhorst.
Yes.
Trustee Carpenter.
Aye.
Trustee Ursink.
Yes.
President Rosick.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Chief Whitaker, for coming out tonight.
Have a good night.
You too. We'll now move on to our next agenda item, which is special order of business 4C. Consider extension of TID 1 for affordable housing. Chair Hammond is here. And just to be clear, Rebecca, on the beginning of the memo, we are we can consider this tonight, or we can take another meeting to have further discussion on this agenda item. Is that correct?
Correct, correct.
Okay, thank you so much. Chair Hammond.
Thank you, President Rozek. This will be a quick report. So at the last CDA meeting, the CDA voted 4-2 to not recommend extending TID 1 for a year for purposes of affordable housing. I'm sure you were all able to watch the proceedings, and if not, I'm happy to provide any insights I have to that vote. And obviously, Trustee Amenta, Trustee Stokebrand were there as well, and they can provide their insights. But with that, I would open it up to any questions you have for me. And after questions, President Rozek, I would like to make one very brief comment to the board. So any questions?
Absolutely. If it's okay, Trustee Menta, Trustee Stokebrand, Amenta first, then Stokebrand, if you'd like to give some comments about CDA discussion.
Well, I mean, I was on the side, the losing side at CDA. So I mean, I know that some people felt that well, I think the tax, you know, we've all been waiting 27 years for this TID. Well, not all of us have been waiting that long, but, you know, we've all known that the TID was going to close and presumably there would be some tax benefit. And so I think members of the CDA were conscious of that fact and not delaying that. And there was also a feeling that if we didn't have projects in front of us, and although we kind of do with the Sunseekers proposal, and that if something came up, we could create a new TID. So, you know, that was, as I recall, the basic arguments against it. But as I said, I voted the other way.
Thank you. Trustee Stokebrand?
To echo a little bit, Trustee Amenta's point, it's the oldest and it was the largest TID, I think 2.5 million. And so I think there was TID fatigue among some of the people, the group of that I joined voting to not recommend approval. I think there were concerns about continuing to not offer an ownership piece. Maybe that could be somehow written in. It wasn't discussed at that point, but I think one of my concerns is that home ownership is one of the major ways that you build equity in our country. And to continue looking at rentals, I wonder about that as a way of really helping people. There were also concerns about costs. The developers would definitely be in it to make some money because we would be giving them incentives. Real estate attorneys, program managers to administrate any programs we would have. The other thing I think a lot of us were thinking about was the pandemic and the global recession. Is this a good time when people are hurting financially? Is this a good time? We do have another TID closing in 2023. Hopefully the recession would be over and we wouldn't have so many people struggling to pay bills. I believe the increment on the TID 5 is 1.5 million. That was a concern. And I guess it all seems good. What could go wrong, right? But we don't, there's a lot of lack of trust about TIDs now because of some things that have happened. And I think you could say that the reviews have been mixed. And so I think those were some of the concerns that people voting against extending it, those were some of their feelings.
Thank you so much. And Rebecca, is Mark here just to give the basics of—
I forgot the most important one.
Go ahead, Mrs. Stokebrand.
I apologize. Part of housing affordability is paying the taxes. And if you want someone to be able to build equity in a home, home ownership is important. And of course, when you're going to shop for a home, one of the things you look at besides the price of the home is the taxes you'll be paying. And so a lot of us felt that lower taxes is a way to affect housing affordability.
Thank you so much. And I know we did have a by-board meeting with the school board and had this on the agenda this week on Thursday. So I would like just, there was some confusion at that meeting. And so if Mark is here or someone is here to basically just explain what this means to the taxpayer by keeping open.
Yeah, no cap, Slack. I got a glizzy on my side, Jit. Yeah. Yeah. Fuck they talking about? No. Yeah, I keep.
Is Sarah okay with that? Got it. So is Mark?
So, oh, Finance Director Emmanuelson is on the call tonight. We also, I believe we will have on here Roger Dickinson, who is the business manager for the school district. This evening, or today, it was clarified that some of the statements made by the school district on Thursday were not accurately reflective of their sentiments. And so, or Dr. Davis will join us. So the school district will be able to provide comment on that. But I believe that, Mark, are you on the line?
And Mark, welcome. If you could just give a quick explanation of how leaving open.
Specific
how that,
related to village activities.
yeah, that's fine. Go ahead. Mark?
I have no comments at this time related to village activities. This is really a policy decision, so.
Oh, I understand, but can you explain how leaving the TIF open for, is it an extra year for affordable housing, how that affects the taxpayer on the village side? Like what does that mean?
Well, the metric we've been tracking for the last several years is potential property tax relief that the TID districts would ultimately generate when they do close. So right now I'm estimating that would be about $400 per household, using our $325,000 metric as a typical household value. So really the question is, is it acceptable to defer that tax relief 1 year to take advantage of the affordable housing capabilities of extending life of the TID, or do you not want to do that? The rest of the impact to the village budget is really unaffected. So.
You mean the cash that we would get at the end? So beyond property tax relief, there's a cash benefit as well when we close out the TIF, correct?
Well, the residual distributions are going to happen this next spring, regardless of. So, however the board decides, that won't impact the cash distributions. Once we get the final revenue and expenditure numbers in for this year, we get through the audit, we'll be prepared to move forward on distributing the residual income next spring, either way.
Either way, whether we keep it open for affordable housing or whether we.
What the fuck?
Correct.
Okay. All right, thank you so much. Dr. Davis, would you like to say a few words on the school district?
Yes, thanks. And our interim business director, Roger Dixon, was not able to be here with us tonight. But yeah, I just want to clear up some confusion from the buy board meeting and a follow-up to that. We had previously spoken about the TID being something that we had calculated into our mill rate calculations as part of the referendum process, and having the TID close as part of our calculations. So just want to clarify in the memo that I think was sent this afternoon, along with our borrowing schedule, that was not the case. And so the TID, the effect of the TID essentially was built into our schedule as if it was going to be extended and not going to close. So essentially what that means is that the impact, excuse me, the impact of extending the TID would not have an impact on the mill rate for the school district. So just want to clarify that. It was a little bit different from conversations from last week.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that clarification. Trustee Carpenter, do you have a question on that?
Yeah, would you, so in the buy board meeting that was definitely not the conversation, because that was actually one of my questions for this evening. So just to confirm, the extending of the TID would not increase, I think it was 20 basis points for extending the TID from the school board. Is that what you were saying? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay. And then now we'll just open it up for some questions. Trustee Bachhorst.
Thank you. So a couple of things. One was for Mark Emanuelson, our finance director. You had mentioned that the cash out or the realization of $400 per household based on a $300,000 property value. Is that, how would that look as far as on the tax bill? Because I think there might be some confusion if people are going to be mailed checks, what this looks like. And you're talking about only people who own property in Shorewood, correct? Not, this wouldn't be, anything distributed to renters, et cetera.
Sure, I'd be happy to address that. There's no payments involved directly, but what it does is it expands the general tax base by the amount of improvements that have accumulated up, otherwise called this increment within the TIF1 district. So that gives everybody a little smaller slice of the pie compared to where they are now. So somewhere slightly over a 5% tax reduction is the impact of that. Again, that's about $400 for your average residential household.
Homeowner.
Whoever owns property gets a 5% tax reduction based on that.
Thank you. Thanks for that clarification. And my other point, or I guess clarification, doesn't involve you, Mr. Manuson, but thank you, was just being part of listening to the CDA meeting, as well as speaking with many of the members afterwards, because there was a lot of confusion there. And I know that Trustee Stokebrand had mentioned a couple of things about TID fatigue and home ownership, building equity, et cetera, lack of trust, and housing affordability. So a couple of things, TID fatigue, I'm not sure, that was not the sense that I got from the CDA members with whom I spoke. It was more of TID confusion and TID misinformation in the community. And it's not necessarily a widespread, I think the only universal thing that I would say here is that there is a lot of confusion around TIF and TID. And so I'm really glad that we are having this meeting, because there has been, whether it's intentional or otherwise, I wouldn't assume it was intentional, but varying points of information surrounding the TIF. So I do agree with the whole lack of trust that Trustee Stokebrand had mentioned before. So I'm glad we can have this. Also regarding building equity and home ownership, I guess that's not really a, I guess that depends on who you speak with. So part of the equity argument isn't necessarily that everyone wants to own a home in Shorewood, but if that were actually the case, I would imagine extending the TIP to help with affordable housing, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong here, and I don't know who we have from the financial, Ellers or Bruce Block or anything like that, but it would be, if it were the goal of this village board in this community to increase home ownership and for affordable units, then that's something that the extension of the TID could help with. So I'll have more points later on, but I just don't, I just want to make sure that we're all talking about conversations we've had with others and our own interpretations. So, mine might be different than others here as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Bachhorst. Trustee Carpenter.
Thank you. I personally have gone back and forth in regards to this idea, and with the overwhelming support from our residents and the large outpouring of emails, especially the residents who are willing to forgive or forgo their tax benefit, especially in incredibly difficult financial times, really has been very moving to me. I feel our community really wants to be able to move forward with affordable housing, and is willing to to pause on that tax relief. I just had a couple of questions, and for me, I'm ready to move forward, depending on these couple of questions. So my first question is maybe to Rebecca or to President Rozek, but who, assuming we're moving forward with this, who would be the custodian of the funds? Is it the CDA as the housing authority? Is it the village? How do we decide where it all goes and who and how it's spent?
Great question. I believe Mark probably directed to Mark.
Rebecca, do you want to jump on that or should I take it?
Sure. The funds would be held in a segregated account for the purposes of affordable housing because their expenditure would be dictated by state statute. So we would keep them in those accounts. I know that the CDA is the housing authority. One of the options the board has is to task them with coming up with proposals for how to proceed with affordable housing in a manageable way for a village of our size. So that's an option that the board has, but the village would hold the funds. And again, they would be restricted for use by statute.
Okay, thank you. And then I know that there has been, so there's sort of two conversations that have been happening within the village. There's the assistance for affordable housing, and then separately and somewhat related is the current development that maybe might possibly be asking for some TIF dollars. So, you know, some of the things that I feel really passionate about is that we ensure that if this current development that is happening, if they do ask for TIF dollars, that we are ensuring that the units that are being allocated for affordable housing are 2-bedroom, or I shouldn't say 2-bedroom, are larger units that families could live in. And so we can get people into our community, families into our community. I would hate for us to move forward with this and only have the 1-bedroom option available. So I'm assuming we have the autonomy to make these decisions. You know, tonight it's just the question of, do we want to move forward? Is that correct?
For purposes of tonight's discussion, we're strictly talking about the extension of TID 1 for purposes of affordable housing. The future applicant for the development has not yet submitted an application, of which that information would be requested and outlined in a greater level of specificity. So the decision made tonight for purposes of extension of the TID are not related to that development.
But the sort of the specifics for affordable housing tonight would be to hold the TID open. That would be our vote. And then the specifics for affordable housing, we would be able to decide moving forward.
Correct. Okay. In conjunction with the definition of state statute.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Trustee Carpenter. I have a question about that, but I'll go ahead and open it up to the board members. Trustee Warren and then Trustee Menta.
Thank you, President Rozek. I made a couple notes when thinking this over the course of this weekend and this afternoon and this evening. And first of all, I wanted to really thank our residents for all the input they provided. I think we'd be remiss if we didn't say thank you. We hear you, and from my personal standpoint, my apologies if I didn't respond back to all of you. It was a lot, but certainly I read everything, and we really appreciate your active role in helping to shape this policy. You know, as I thought about this, I thought the Milwaukee area's historical problem with classism, segregation, and affordable housing are all extremely well established. And now tonight, as a board, we're presented with the opportunity to do something about those problems. The problems touch every aspect of our society, and frankly, and unfortunately, the story hasn't changed a lot throughout the years. And you know, it's no longer enough to be passive. I view this as something where we have to be actively inclusive, actively anti-racist. You know, I was forced to think back to, you know, my mom was able to move us to Shorewood when I was a junior in high school. She was a single mom. We were on a single salary. She was an MPS teacher. and we were able to move to Shorewood. And frankly, I don't know that people would be lucky enough to have that opportunity that I had now. This is an identified community need. It comes up over and over and over again. And I think I'm sure that it's a step we should take tonight. But really, it's just the first one. This is incremental. We have a lot of work to come. We need to design this. We need to loan program, et cetera. We need to work with our partners in the city and county. We need to work with for surrounding municipalities. We certainly don't want this to stall at any point, and we need to hold ourselves accountable to keep this moving forward. But this is a good start. This is the right start. And I hope we pass it tonight. And frankly, I hope that municipalities around us follow suit and take advantage of this wonderful opportunity that's been presented to us. So I guess my only question for you, Rebecca, is assuming that we move forward with extending the TID, when does this come back to us? How quickly can we get to work?
When this matter was at the CDA, if the board so chooses, they could task that group with putting together some framework for us to work in, and then they would bring it back after coming to that conclusion. So my understanding is that they are ready to work for you to provide some recommendations moving forward. It would just be at the board's direction. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. We're going to go around the table once for everyone to speak and ask their questions, and then we'll go around again. I believe, was it Trustee Menta?
Yeah, so I didn't quite get the answer to Trustee Carpenter's question about who would actually control allocation of the money. Is it in the CDA's basket, or would the board have to approve those expenditures?
So from my understanding, sorry, I got some feedback. It would be held by the village, and then as determined by the village board, expended in accordance with the state statute definitions for affordable housing. But it would be specifically restricted to be used on purposes for affordable housing in conjunction with those definitions.
So like the CDA will recommend, but the board will vote.
Correct. The CDA recommends if you so task them to. I do think that they are a good group to work on it in light of the fact that they are the village's housing authority. I know that that's been something that's brought up multiple times in conversation. And this is a project that would be beneficial, I think, for them to work on. But that, of course, is up to the discretion of the board.
Since they are the housing authority. Mark, I had a question about the $400. So if that's a 5% reduction, you're talking about a tax bill of $8,000 on which is about right for a $300,000 house. So, but as we've said, between 40 and 50% of that is the schools. That is probably that we're going to lose state aid. So, assuming they don't lower the mill rate for the 1 year and then increase it again, I mean, given the state equalization aid issue, isn't it really closer to $200 than to $400?
Well, in the long term, because of the changes in the state funding formula, the ongoing tax relief from TID 1 is more likely to be about $240. And I'm just maybe $225. I mean, yes, a lot closer to 200 than to 400. Again, there's an opportunity in the initial year to have the full impact of that. Again, as I always say, if all other things are equal, but in the long term, the state's going to change the funding formula for the school district. It's going to require them to shift some of those costs back onto the equalized values that were released from the TID, and that'll kind of gross down the perpetual savings to $225, $240 a year.
Well, and that's also assuming that we don't increase our levy at all. Like nobody increases their levy at all. I mean, everyone's going to increase their levy a little bit, and that'll eat into that also. I mean, I just don't want people to think, oh, giving up $400. It's really, no, the state's going to adjust, which means local levy's going to have to pick up more school costs, and also everybody's levy will increase a little bit. So I don't think it's going to be, I don't think the savings would be, that people will actually end up seeing would be, you know, just doing a straight calculation. So anyway, I did, as far as that, I mean, I did vote in favor of doing this at the CDA. I think that it's going to give us tremendous flexibility for, I mean, just to create a new TID every time there's a project or affordable housing opportunity is really cumbersome. To have this money set aside will give us a lot of flexibility for all kinds of programs, and I think it's really what we need. I did also look today though at our TID values in 4 and 5 combined are about another 90 million in increment. So you know, I mean, we may want to think comprehensively, like, I mean, I want to vote for it now because I'm not going to be on the board, but I mean, I just want to point out that there's, when TID 4 and TID 5 close, which I think are later this decade, there's going to be an opportunity there either for tax relief or for continued funding of a trust fund.
Thank you, Trustee Amenta. Trustee Ursink?
Yeah, I just, you know, I think Wesley said it great, and I really want to keep it brief. You know, thank you for that, Wesley. You know, this is such an important topic for our community, and we have such a great opportunity right now with this TIF closing to put this money to good use, and I'm just fully supportive of it. You know, one question I do have is, with the CDA voting not to extend the TIF, Chair Hammond, what are your thoughts about us working with the CDA on this if they're not for this extension? I mean, will we have a good collaborative partner with the CDA?
And to clarify, they're voted not to recommend the extension.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead, Chair Hammond.
Yeah. Trustee Ursink, thank you for that question. That was actually the comment I was going to offer. I agree, it does sound a bit counterintuitive to rely on the CDA. We are the housing authority, and I do believe if the board decides to proceed with affordable housing, that the CDA will do an excellent job. You have given me a great group of people on that board. They are passionate about the village. They are ready to do the work, and I have no doubt that they will develop a plan and implement a plan and monitor the plan that meets the board's goals. Just one point to Trustee Bockhorst, I take responsibility. I think we had multiple discussions about the concept of extending for purposes of affordable housing, and everybody, well, I shouldn't say everybody, there was, I would say, agreement generally that was good, and when it got to the actual vote, I should have done more work to clarify certain things for them. So that I take that on as my responsibility, but to answer your question specifically, I have no doubt they will do an excellent job on that.
Just to follow up, Chair Hammond, do you get a sense that if with the more information that we have now, or the CDA has now, do you think that vote would still be the same, or do you think they would change their vote at this point?
I don't know that.
I guess that's, if I don't need to know, I don't need to. It's a, you know.
Okay.
It's all good, but I mean, that's really all I have.
Yeah, once a group makes a vote, that is, we must speak with one voice. That was our vote.
Yep.
So that's what it is. Yeah.
Totally understand. Thank you.
Did every trustee get a chance to ask questions? I have some. Trustee Stokbrand, and then I'll ask mine, and then we can go around the table again.
I just would like to say that I don't think it was so much a question of opposing. I mean, I think the people that voted against the recommendation, it's not necessarily that they opposed affordable housing. It's just a question of how to get there. And I think in my personal opinion, I very much favor affordable housing. It just depends on how you see it happening. And the pandemic is the biggest thing that made me think, let's pass on this one and do the TID in 2023, because the recession should have resolved itself. We'll have more economic stability. And that's the only reason that I voted to not recommend. But I agree with Chair Hammond. I have a lot of respect for the people on the CDA, and we will certainly, take the task that we're assigned.
Thank you, Trustee Stokebrand. My questions are, so I definitely agree with Trustee Warren's comments and some others that have gone before me, that this is really the time to support a village initiative to proactively recruit and partner with the private sector to develop affordable housing for our residents and for future residents. I think I agree with Trustee Bockhorst in the sense that home ownership is not really necessary in order to provide equity. Rentals can do the same thing. What our village barrier is at the time to families with lower incomes, there's nowhere for them to rent or to live if they want to come and access our school system or enjoy our amenities. So if you have a lower income or you're a senior and on a fixed income, it's very difficult to either come into our village and find housing or to stay in our village if you're already here and you want to stay on a fixed income. So I think providing any type of housing opportunity for that's more affordable, whether it's rental or home ownership, is going to be beneficial for our village. And I especially am interested in senior housing, affordable senior housing, because I know that has been a topic of much discussion over the last 7 years that I've been here, and how to keep our seniors in our village who want to stay on a fixed income. So, so that's number one. I guess I am concerned, and I just want to state it here, that I'm in favor of keeping the TIF open an extra year, utilizing it, and like Trustee Menta had said, looking for future TIFs to actually build a trust fund for housing, affordable housing in our village as we move forward. My concern is that we do not, this is actually an initiative where we partner to provide a large amount of units to as many, affordable units as we can. And so I just want to make sure that it's not just first come, first serve, and we actually have a village initiative to do affordable housing. So I look forward to the CDA, if this passes, working with the village board and coming up with a program of what we want to provide funding for, rather than, first come, first serve. So I would like that in place. That would be my big concern, is I just would like it to be more proactive on the village part of what we want and how many units than reactive to private sector proposals. So that would be my second comment. And yeah, I think I'll leave it there. I agree with Trustee Amenta. The tax benefit is we're gonna see that for years and years to come. Unfortunately, I don't think that it would be that large in the year. Either it gets eaten up by other budgetary, inflation, or it gets repurposed. So I don't want the residents to think they had this big windfall coming, which I'm sure some might have, but not necessarily the $400 that was talked about in the first year. So with that, I will then go ahead and open it up. I am supportive of extending the TIF. I think this is our opportunity, and I'm very much excited, if it passes, to work with the CDA on establishing an initiative and being proactive rather than reactive. Trustee Bockhorst.
Thank you. So I want to say, Chair Hammond, who is the CDA chair, I really appreciate you take responsibility for the discussion at the CDA. I think that shows incredible integrity and leadership. And even though I don't feel that you're solely responsible, I think responsibility is shared with the village board, with our other stakeholders, and just, a variety of things. But again, to that point, I do trust that the CDA will take and has their charge seriously and continue to do so. So I really appreciate that. And it's not at all a shock that the CDA would make this recommendation to us, because, and forgive me, I know this is going to sound like I'm attacking this board, but I'm not. What I'm saying is 4 of the 7 of the current board members ran on an anti-TIF and 0% tax increase platform. And this, it's no surprise to the CDA members. They asked us, they work in tandem with us. So I trust, however, that the CD, but and to that point, I think it shows great integrity and promise that what I'm hearing tonight is that some of those board members are changing their minds on their opinion as far as tax incremental financing. If we didn't have it, we would not have this windfall. We would not be having this discussion this evening regarding affordable housing. And I agree, this is only the beginning of the discussion. But I trust that the CDA, in collaboration with the board, the county, Wisconsin Fair Housing, and diverse groups of stakeholders can develop a very thoughtful guidelines to give integrity to any project consideration that would come before us. I don't feel that it's necessarily this board. Yeah, I feel that we are going to learn a lot more by collaborating with other entities who have the knowledge, who have the budget, who have the experience in this regard. And we will have a lot of thoughtful consideration and a lot of communication and community forums and relationship initiatives and equity, diversity and inclusion planning. So I also am glad that we are not waiting for the pandemic to end, that we are being proactive. I think that if the pandemic has taught that we need to help our most vulnerable population, wait for recessions to end. We have to be proactive. We don't know what is coming before us. I think Trustee Warren had mentioned some really good points regarding his experience as well as the need for affordable housing. We have been just in the last couple of days, I have received over 80 communications and combination of emails, which I'm assuming most of you received as well, phone calls. I've even had people stop me while I was walking my dog. And even at City Hall in Milwaukee, I had a couple of people talk to me. So it's been quite an experience. And I want to echo some of the sentiments. You're right. It is very difficult to afford living in Shorewood, especially for those of us who are single parents. I have 2 children, school district. I pay a lot of money and I work very hard to live here. And I don't know that everyone is as fortunate as I am. And I hope that we can guide this program that will allow other people of all ranges and abilities. We talk a lot about diversity and equity, and I know racial equity comes up a lot. We also talk about we talk about socioeconomic equity and diversity, as well as a variety of things. So I know that Trustee Carpenter had mentioned making sure that we have units in whichever program that we look forward or that we look to that can house families. That's great. But we also have a lot of single people. We have veterans that would benefit from this. We have people who have children or family members with disabilities of all kinds. Quite a good number in this village who would like to have their loved ones remain close to them, and also to recruit and bring in other individuals from across the state. I don't mean to sound, too repetitive here, but I know that appetite obviously demonstrated by the outreach that we received from the community over many, many years. So I'm elated to hear that many of the board members will be speaking tonight. And I know there are a variety of people in the community that have their hand raised here. I don't know if the chair is going to allow it after all the trustees get a chance to speak, but I'm very grateful that we're having this discussion, and I look forward to voting yes on this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Bachhorst. Trustee Carpenter and then Trustee Ursink.
Thank you. I just want to clarify, I am in support of TIF dollars for public benefit. I still believe that TIF dollars should not be used for private subsidization and private development. This is something that I feel is providing a good to our community, and that is what I believe tax dollars should be used for. So I am not changing my my thoughts or my beliefs. I think we have the duty to right many wrongs that have happened within this area for hundreds of years. And so I just want to make sure that that is clear. I don't believe in subsidizing private developments, but I think this is as a public good. So thank you. I look forward to voting.
Thank you, Trustee Carpenter. Trustee Ursink,
I'd like to make a motion on this.
go ahead.
So I move to extend TID 1 for purposes of affordable housing and recommend the CDA develops a plan for utilization of the funds over the next 12 months.
Second.
We got a motion by Trustee Ursink, a second by Trustee Warren, and we will continue discussion. Trustee Amenta and then Trustee Stokebrand.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I echo what Trustee Carpenter said, that there's a big difference between using TIF dollars to provide affordable housing in our community and using TIF dollars to subsidize luxury housing, which is what it has been used for the past several projects, other than a small portion of the Light Horse. Secondly, I want to give credit to President Rozek. I went back and looked at minutes from the CDA in 2016, which was her first year and as an elected official, and she was on the CDA. You can go back to 2016, and she mentions affordable housing, and you know that the CDA is the housing authority, and when are they that we need to pay attention to this. And she has brought this up as an issue 5 years ago, and I'm proud that we're finally doing something about it. And I want to thank her for her advocacy and for raising this as an issue and a concern for the village all the way back in 2016. So thank you, President Rozek.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Trustee Stokebrand.
Thank you. I'll be brief. I just wanted to clarify that when I ran, I did not oppose TIDs, but I encouraged transparency and accountability with the use of them, given what had happened in the village. And I did not run on a zero tax increase platform. I had said that I would be hope to be a good steward of taxpayer dollars, and there is a difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Stokebrand. And I'd like to clarify as well, because when people make statements like that, I am definitely have always ran on being in favor of keeping the tax rate low so that our village can stay affordable. So I will own up to that. I never said 0%, but definitely keeping it low, which we've been able to do for the last 3 years under 1%. So I am very proud of that. But as for TIF, I agree 100%. And I worked in the city of Milwaukee for 15 years, and I was in charge of the TIF program for downtown. And so there is definitely a benefit to using public dollars for public goods. I am opposed to, just as Trustee Menta has said and Trustee Carpenter has echoed, I am opposed to using public dollars to in TIF funding to fund luxury housing. And so just to make that clear, I definitely would utilize TIF as we did in Milwaukee for a public river walk or a public park or affordable housing, which is a public good. And I've done it in the past. I've always been supportive of that, and I've always will continue to be supportive of using public dollars for public goods. Okay, so with that, do we have any other board member questions or comments before I would like to take some comments from the public? No? Okay. Sarah, is there anybody with their hand raised?
Well, I have a list of people who emailed me ahead of time, so I'm going to start with that list first, if that's okay.
Go right ahead.
All right. Michael Morris, if you're on the meeting, if you could please unmute yourself and state your name and address and provide your comment, please. Okay, we'll come back to him. Corey Paraguain, if you're on the meeting, if you could unmute yourself and state your name and address, please.
Hi, this is Corey Schneider-Perugini. I am not a Shorewood resident, but speaking on behalf of the Metropolitan Milwaukee Fair Housing Council.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Corey Schneider-Perugini, and I'm here representing the Fair Housing Council. I'm here this evening at the invitation of Trustee Ursink. The purpose of the Fair Housing Council is to promote fair housing throughout the state of Wisconsin by combating illegal housing discrimination and by creating and maintaining racially and economically integrated housing patterns. I've been at the Fair Housing Council for 23 years, and I administer their Inclusive Communities program. It's important to communicate at first the connection between affordable housing and fair housing. Persons of color, persons with disabilities, and single-headed households are disproportionately low income and in greater need of affordable housing. Therefore, any effort to limit affordable housing disproportionately affects persons of color, persons with disabilities, single-headed households. Some of the work we do at the Fair Housing Council is a program in which we work with families on rent assistance. We help those families that have children try to access communities that are referred to as high opportunity communities. And those are areas where data shows that kids from low-income households are more likely to attain higher education and have significantly higher incomes as adults in compared to their counterparts that were not in high opportunity areas.
All right, so you're probably not gonna
Do you know what community is a high opportunity? Shorewood is a high opportunity community. Many of the families that we're working with would love to live in Shorewood. One of the participants that I talked to this morning in a focus group said that really simply, we want better for our children, and we're working with these families, and we just cannot find these housing units in Shorewood. So we're really excited that this is a possibility. I can tell you in my 23 years of studying racial and economic segregation, the place that you are all at now as trustees is not new. And you know that this is one of thousands of decisions that your community, like all communities, has made since its inception. And decisions have consequences, and you know this. In Milwaukee County, those consequences have been made very clear. We're the most segregated metro area in the US. We have the lowest Black suburbanization rate in the United States. The city of Milwaukee is 39% Black, and Shorewood, its neighbor to the north and east, is 3.1% Black. And I've been working with another group for the last 2 years, creating a curriculum about the history of segregation in Milwaukee. And I've been pouring through boxes and boxes of records of community housing decisions going back to the 1920s. And these were records that were used in the MPS school desegregation case lawsuit from the 1980s. And they were used to prove that these community housing decisions caused housing segregation, which in turn caused school segregation. And sometimes the elected officials in these communities knew they were explicitly excluding African Americans, and sometimes they didn't. And the times are different now. We no longer have restrictive communities with enforceable racially restrictive covenants. Instead, we have barriers to affordable housing. And guess what? If you're to maintain a white community, limiting housing opportunities based on income is almost as effective as racially restrictive covenants. I spent more than 10 years dissecting Waukesha County's municipal housing barriers, and I have the unfortunate expertise of understanding nuances of municipal housing exclusion and its effects on race more than probably anyone in this region, unfortunately. So dear trustees, when it comes to make your decision tonight or 2 weeks from tonight, it might help to put this all in that context. Do you want this to be a decision of many that someone looks at decades from now as they're pouring through boxes and boxes of housing records to understand the litany of actions that created segregation? Or can it be that simple action in our country's time of racial reckoning that a community took to begin to turn things around? And I'm feeling very, very hopeful tonight, and I'm hoping that it goes in the favor of extending that TIF. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. They were very well appreciated and spoken. Sarah?
Yes, next I have Lois Quinn. Lois, if you could unmute yourself and state your name and address, please.
Am I unmuted now?
You are, yes.
Okay, and I'll start the video. I'm Lois Quinn. I live at 2219 East Menlo. I'm a Sherwoodian. And thank you for the opportunity to be here. 40 years ago, I did a study on racially restricted covenants in Milwaukee County. And I can remember the very week that I saw the covenant for Shorewood that said that in a new subdivision in Lake Bluff area, no persons of Negro or Ethiopian descent could live in the houses. It was heartbreaking. It wasn't unique. There were other ones equally as concerned, but I have to tell you, the covenant that I looked at later that concerned me much more, I looked at yesterday, and that was for the Armory subdivision. It was a lot nicer in tone. It didn't suggest that domestics could stay at houses. It simply stated that no non-whites could live, rent, subdivide, or occupy houses. And it covered the whole subdivision. And why I say it was more concerning is because 2 paragraphs later, it said, every provision in these covenants can be reversed by the Shorewood ordinance. So in effect, the village board could have stopped the covenant, could have stopped it in 1929, could have stopped it in 1950, but they didn't. And I take some responsibility as a Shorewoodian that we are in a community that was built with this racial basis to it. And it wasn't the only thing. The largest factor, I believe, in why we have a community that is so white within walking distance of neighborhoods that are so black is because during the Great Depression and then after World War II, the FHA, the Federal Housing Administration, insured thousands and thousands of mortgages. And they used redlining maps, they encouraged racially restrictive covenants, and then they had written rules that they followed that they insured whites, and not only just not insured properties where African Americans lived, but didn't insure properties for whites who lived with African Americans. And after World War II, when all the vets came home, we had a tremendous housing shortage. And yet the VA, who under the GI Bill should have been providing all these men with help with their housing, followed the same rules. So there were a few exceptions, but very few. So in effect, in Milwaukee, as in the nation, we had over half of the mortgages were subsidized by the FHA and the VA, and they were, with almost on exceptions, not allowed to go to blacks. And that's the town we built. So now we're at a stage where we have a beautiful community, beautiful physically, but we have this underbelly of not only do we have this racial history that gave some people that start. I mean, if I'm like a lot of you, my husband and I, we started with a duplex on a busy street, not in Shorewood. We moved to a single family home, not in Shorewood. Then we moved to a Shorewood house. Each time we built our equity, we had that support. And for so many people in the Black community, they never got that chance. They were relegated to renters from the 20s when these covenants started through the Depression, the post-war to now. Okay, so I get emotional because I care so much about it. But now I think you have a chance to use a fund. It's just ironic, but you have a chance to use this TID fund. You can use it creatively. It doesn't have to be locked into one specific site. You could use it for scattered sites. You have flexibility. You don't have a time frame on top of you. You can take your time doing things, you can experiment. Doesn't work, you can use it for another part of it. But you have a chance to make us a better community. And you have a chance to deal with race in a way that we've just got to. We can't be able to walk to the city and yet not have the city live with us and be part of us. We will be better. We will gain as much, if not more, than the people we bring in. And so I welcome this opportunity. I think it's a time to be creative and brave and begin making a change. And so thank you.
Thank you so much for that, for your remarks. They were very impactful. Go ahead, Sarah. Do we have anybody else?
We do. Ellen Gilligan, if you're on, if you could unmute yourself and state your name and address, please.
Ellen Gilligan, 2726 East Shorewood Boulevard. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. I'm a resident and homeowner of Shorewood and a parent of a proud Greyhound Shorewood High School graduate. So go Greyhounds. I also have the great honor of being the president and CEO of the Greater Milwaukee Foundation and have worked in the issues of affordable housing probably for longer than I'd like to say, though I am so inspired by Lois Quinn and her commitment to these issues. And I learn so much from her every time I hear her speak. I totally support the keeping the TID open for the use of affordable housing in Shorewood. This is something that's been long documented in the Shorewood strategic planning processes and the need for affordable housing for all the populations that have been talked about this evening in Shorewood. My husband and I moved here. We're not native Milwaukeeans. We moved here from Cincinnati, but we've had the opportunity to live in a number of different cities. And we chose Shorewood because the kind of community it is, diverse economically, racially, great schools, wonderful walkable commercial district. It is a community that attracts and retains a wonderful mix of residents. And to Mr. Warren's point, this is a moment in time where we can reverse some of the historical segregation that has plagued not only Shorewood, but this region for decades. And I would just add that Shorewood has the opportunity to set a very important example for the surrounding jurisdictions, because the action that this board takes will have an impact on other surrounding jurisdictions in the region. And it is the opportunity to change the systemic nature of housing discrimination and begin to reverse the segregation that has long plagued this region and is really holding this region back. So I urge the Shorewood Village Board to keep the TID open, to spend the $2.5 million that's estimated on affordable housing. I would also support the development of a strategic plan. I know there was discussion about the CDA working to develop a plan. There were several comments about being proactive in the planning process as opposed to reactive. And I think that's a really important aspect of the work going forward, to really understand what the needs are in this community and create a plan to address the needs serving the populations that you're trying to serve. So I hope that you will join the Greater Milwaukee Foundation and other organizations across the region that are committed to advancing affordable housing for all populations in the region. Thank you.
So much for your comments. Sarah?
Yep. Next is Christine Grappi is on. Christine, if you could unmute yourself and state your name and address, please. I didn't see her. Okay, we can always come back. If Representative Bowen is on, if you could unmute yourself.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for having me on. I am thankful to be on this call, and I hate to take the place of Christine Grappi, who I know is going to give some really good insight. Thank you to Dr. Quinn for that amazing just presentation and insight. You know, sometimes you all have thankless jobs where sometimes it's only the issues that people have when something's wrong. This is a moment where you are getting it right and you're being courageous leaders. So first off, I want to thank you for that, because even when it is tough to figure that out, and the mounting questions of what you know, what does this change? How much more work do we have to do? And some of the unseen circumstances, the fact that you're willing to work through them is really important. So I want to highlight that as well. You know, you're going to hear from a lot of people, so I want to be brief. I had a chance to send a letter to all the members of the village board with my insights, you know, just to educate folks on this change in state law that was led by Democrats to allow TIF districts to extend for 1 year. It was for this exact same reason, so that it would at least be an option for municipalities when they'd like to focus on affordable housing. And many times TIF districts are created not with that intent, but usually to end up supporting private development. I think I have a little bit different of opinion. I believe tax dollars can be used for private development when it is leveraging projects that the private market would usually reject, that the private market usually would say that it's not worthy of private support to exist or to be created. So that's when I believe it is needed for tax dollars to be able to be put on the table to give those projects leverage. Many of those projects end up losing support off of the myths about them. Affordable housing is your everyday average working people that are your essential workers, the folks that helped us get through this pandemic, the folks that are usually lower paid, but if you ask me, they are the same essential people that deserve essential benefits as well. Many of them would be able to benefit from affordable housing that would leverage units and projects that they could afford if they were leveraged to be able to exist. So Shorewood has that option. I'm glad that you guys are using that option, and that this also can create tax base growth. A lot of times that is not highlighted as you talk about the myths about affordable housing and even moderate income housing. A lot of folks forget that your civic employees that work for government, that work for the public sector, many times fall in that category. So it's important to recognize that, and for you guys to be courageous. So for you to say that you're going to put off the property tax drop, I think it's fair to say that after a year, then you can see those savings, and then look at the impact that $2.5 million can have in a village like Shorewood. But I do see that this is a great fit for you guys to make this decision, move in this direction, and come back around after this is created, after work is already being done, not put it off, but then to be able to review that and then say, you know, what are some things that we've learned from this process, and how have we benefited from the investments that we've made with these dollars. I think that's very safe to say, especially to be an example for the other municipalities in Milwaukee County that are now going to see this as an example of what are the possibilities by actually leveraging these dollars. So I just want to thank the board, thank every single one of you for being willing to stick your neck out there and say, you know, let's try something different. Many times when it comes to eliminating disparities and creating more opportunity, more chances for growth, it takes folks to be able to get past those myths and get past those stigmatized notions that the sky is going to fall and you just can't do it. So first off, just thank you guys so much for moving in this direction. And I urge you to approve. I do have a friendly amendment if somebody's willing to take it up as you are shifting the insight to the community development committee, that you are asking them to also work with the Housing Council, the Fair Housing Council, in making this plan. If it is a strategic plan to be able to move forward and to use these dollars effectively, I think they could be a great partner in doing that. And then I yield. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Representative Bowen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Bruce Colburn. Bruce, if you could unmute yourself and state your name and address, please.
Bruce Colburn. What did you ask me to do?
Address.
Name and address.
3905 North Farwell.
Thank you.
Our family lives in this community and have for a number of years. I appreciate what people have done tonight and decided, it sounds like, to move forward on this project. But I also think that we have to take to heart that we're only just talking about scratching the surface. We have to think about some way to break through. And there's a scar in our community that is going to eat this community alive. It's a scar of racism. It's a scar of segregation. And it comes in the form of all sorts of things, of low paid jobs, of lack of health care, and the list goes on and on. And certainly near the top of that list is affordable housing. So you're talking about an important long range, short range, everyday kind of issue. I work with a group called Souls to the Polls, and we've taken up the issue after spending a year trying to change things at the ballot box and having hopefully some success. Everything we can do to push the passing of the bill before the Senate is important, because think about it, we're talking about $38 billion being spent on housing, $38 billion. What we have to do is think about how, if we're able to get that bill passed, what we're going to do and what we're going to do to be innovative, to be ahead of the game, to talk about what we can do in the future. Let's get this issue done, but let's think about things that we can do to step in and start thinking about stepping ahead, because it's not going to change with this discussion. Now, we're going to have a chance of a lifetime where money is going to come, hopefully, if this passes, and come into communities, and there'll be questions of what do you do about affordable housing? What do you do about segregation? What do you do about those things? Let's take a stand in Shorewood to figure out, how do we get ahead? How do we put some ideas out? How do we start to think about the bigger question? And so thank you. I appreciate what you've done tonight, but I really ask you to, and this can be ask you to think ahead about what can be done in the next couple of years, and think about it now, when there are, I believe, the possibility of real resources to do that. You know, our family would love to help. I know there's other families that would love to help. It's going to be a real chance, and I think it's being done in a way that can spur us on, because again, we cannot just stand on small issues that are important and important for the people who are affected, but we really have to think about what's going to help change things, and do we have a chance here in Shorewood to be an example to change that question around affordable housing.
Thank you so much for your comments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Carrie Patzer. Carrie, if you could unmute yourself and state your name and address, please.
Hi, and I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to me and everybody else who is. I am a single mother and I'm feeling really emotional right now. The one thing that I would like to state is that I was a resident of Shorewood a long time ago. I went through a high conflict divorce. I'm a single mother. And in my court order, it states that if I do not live in Shorewood, I lose my daughter. Like, I lose her. I don't have 50-50 custody. And so please, Shorewood, as you move forward, think about that. I'm a single mother. I graduated from college in Milwaukee. I moved here from a very small town. I've been picked on. I know I have by my neighbors, by people from Shorewood. But if I do not live here and I cannot afford the rent after a high conflict divorce that I actually met before the Wisconsin Supreme Court justices and had to testify about what happened in legislation in Wisconsin has been changed, I lose my child. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you so much for your comments.
Thank you, Carrie. Next, we have Beth Jacobasi. Beth, if you could unmute yourself and state your name and address, please.
Yes, Beth Jacobasi, 3827 North Prospect. I've lived in Shorewood since 1986, and all three of my children have gone through the Shorewood schools. And I wrote to all of you yesterday, board members, about my daughter and her special needs. And we were so thrilled when they extended the special needs program through middle school and high school, and then this terrific transition program that we have. And there's been many, many families with special needs kids that have moved into the district so that they could take advantage of this program. But as I stated, they graduate and get jobs in the area, but hardly any of them have been able to move out because they don't have an affordable place to live. They're, on minimum wage jobs. And a lot of them are not working 40 hours a week. Most of them are 15, 20. Some get some Social Security. And I have been on this committee of parents for several years trying to find some affordable housing. My husband and I finally bought a condo over at Eastwood Condos on a line on our ourselves. And then Gina is paying us rent. That's how we just finally figured out how to do this in December. She's very happy there, but not everybody can do something like that. And as I said, I know so many families that I know one other family whose child is living out of the house. And this is out of a lot of families in the area. So we've got everything all set up for people with adults with disabilities, except for a place to live on their own. And I also feel very, very strongly that we need to diversify the village. I keep waiting for that to happen, and we've got a great opportunity here. So it sounds like most of you are going to support this, and I thank you. And I know there were some concerns that homeowners could use that extra money, and people are unemployed. My husband and I both play in the symphony. We've been unemployed for months, but I'm happy. Well, we're getting back there now at a reduced salary as of beginning of February, but I'm happy to forgo that money for a year in hopes of getting some more affordable housing in the village. And I would really encourage you to look at this possible project at where the North Shore Bank building is or was on the corner of Oakland and Capitol. I think that space could solve a lot of issues because it's got a lot of doctors, a lot of office buildings that are vacant. There's now the Shorewood Family Physicians is empty next to it. There's parking lot space that could be developed. It's a great location. It's right on the bus line. It would be a great spot. I think I wrote to you about, we talked when I went to some Shorewood Moving Forward meetings, and we're talking about how there's a lack of a student center for students that don't live in the district, they need a place to go between school and the evening activities. And if we had a student center where they could go and do homework, maybe get a snack, we could set something like that up in the bottom floor of that building, and Brian Davis was excited about it. I think there's ways that we can combine funding resources to make that corner a really great example of what can be done in a community. We could have community center, a place for the kids to go, somewhere that our special needs students can train or get paid to work. They could have housing units. We can have housing units for minorities. That's a really, I know the space in Shorewood is so tight because we've looked at it very carefully, but I think there's a lot of possibilities and a lot of funding opportunities because of all the different groups that it could help provide for. And I know it might sound sort of like a pie in the sky, but I was on the D2D committee, the Drive to Distinction committee years ago when we were going to redo the whole outdoor athletic facility. And, you know, we had to raise $3.5 million of private funds, and everybody's like, oh, you're never going to be able to do that. And why? Our athletic teams are so bad. And I was on this committee. We met every Saturday for 6 years. So every Saturday morning, we finally looked at the beautiful facility we have. The enrollment went up. We've got great sports teams. We've got other community groups using that facility. It was with great pride that I went to the first football game there, you know, and so that it actually worked. And it's a beautiful facility. And I feel like this is a great opportunity to do something else like this that would benefit so many people in the community. And I think this would be a good place to use some of that money. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. Sarah, how many other residents are there?
It's like 2 right now. So I have El Marizewski, if you would like to unmute yourself. And then I have Senator Taylor, which I believe is the person with the iPhone.
Hi, my name is Lindsay Marashevsky. I live at 4511 North Newhall Street. I guess my question is, historically, obviously putting in affordable housing is like the first and foremost way to undo decades of racial disparity, but how do we ensure that that affordable housing actually impacts racial disparity as well as income disparity? Specifically, are there any plans at all? My understanding is minimal of this overall, but I'm asking because I'm hoping somebody else will know. Are there any plans to work with HUD or something in some way to try to maybe utilize some of the housing choice voucher program, Section 8, something like that? I mean, it's absolutely something Shorewood should do. It's well past time. And as long as we have the opportunity, I think we have to take it. But what are the tools available to us to ensure that it does more than just bring in more white people? Thanks.
Thank you. Something hopefully to consider during our upcoming conversations. Go ahead, Sarah.
And then we have Senator Taylor.
Well, you still have my camera off, so my picture is unable to show like Representative Bowen or Bruce Colburn or others.
I can turn your camera on.
Thank you. I'm sorry that you turned it off. Perfect. So first of all, let me say thank you. I'm really proud to see you all making this choice. I am upside down. I don't know. 1 second. Sorry, I don't know why I'm upside. There we go. That's better. Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to multitask here. So first of all, I want to say that I'm so proud of Shorewood. Often I found myself coming to Shorewood to talk about things, whether it was students having challenges in school and the need for you to lead and to hear them, or whether it is parents who had various challenges, not only in the school district, but within the community and with the police department, where citizens have been harassed or discriminated against. And had to move or dealing with various issues, and often including when the teacher taught the children and said they should pair with someone their kind and learn about slave games, I often have found myself not pleased with the leadership that has existed in my district in Shorewood, and what I have often said is one of the most progressive communities, and I believe could be a leader in so many ways. Those are the messages that I've shared with the school board and with the school district and with the superintendent. And I have to say to you that often I've walked away, like when we had the big town hall around To Kill a Mockingbird, and I've been extremely disappointed and frustrated. But today, I wish I was capable of doing a cartwheel, because I would do one for you all. I wish I was the girl that went to Rufus King and could do my cheerleading and pom-pom stuff right now, because I would do it. And so I think the best that I can do is to ask Representative Bowen that maybe he and I will do a letter and do a press release to really commend you for being a leader, not just in Shorewood, not just in Milwaukee County, but really in the state. When the doctor spoke, she spoke very honestly about what our history is in this community and how we got this hyper-segregated community that we do, and excuse me, the depth of poverty that we have in this community. And it was intentional, and government was a part. And people turned their eyes to the things that made things the way that they are. But today, I am so proud to be your senator. I know it's only, $2 million. It's only one TIF. And, people will be like, Lena, this is not, all of that. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Because it is the beginning of saying that those covenants were wrong. It's the beginning of saying that we can make a commitment and do different. And I just needed to come and listen and say, I am so excited that I'm not doing the speech to convince you. I am so proud of all of you. And I needed to say that. You are reclaiming the progressive Wisconsin way. You are taking your, and progressive not in some like extreme, liberal way that some people may say is negative, although I don't know that I think that that's bad. But my point is that you are claiming what I know Shorewood to be. And I am just so proud. It is aligning with what the county executive has stated that he would like to do and see. So I would ask you to think about ways to collaborate. And I second Representative Bowen's request for you to work with the Fair Housing Council, but I also will ask you to work with the county, because of the effort that the Office of African American Affairs is doing and that the county executive has done. And the previous county executive has done to say that racism is a public health crisis. I believe that very often connected to affordable housing and low-income housing also is to address the issue of diversity from not just financial, but race. And so the quote is, it's never, too late to do, the time is always right to do what is right. And so I commend you for that. And so I wanted to start with that and start with saying, I'm just loving this moment. I also agree with Bruce Colburn. He said that he called it something different, but I call it a cancer. The isms, the racism, the things that have been a part of this nation and a part of this, this area, not just, one community, really is a cancer that's, eating at us in so many ways. And so one of the things that I hope that you will do as you do this is to look at some of the challenges that also have been noticed when these types of developments happen. And so first things first, the developments happen and then they have the housing for a period of time. And then the costs go up in such a way that I want to say it's like 5 years after that. Often I know in my office, I get many calls from people telling me that the number of affordable housing that is made available in those developments, that it changes and then it's not so affordable anymore. So I really ask you to think about what those clawbacks look like on that, or what that accountability looks like in that way. And then lastly, I ask you to look at something that I haven't heard being discussed, but because it is the type of issue that I've noticed that's happened in communities across, but in particular in Shorewood, is that you've had individuals who have had various harassment or discriminatory experiences with their neighbors. And as a result of that, they've had to move. And those costs have been a lot for those people and those families. And so I don't quite know how you can make those things connect, but I hope that you will not just think about home ownership, which is important. I don't disagree that it is important. And affordable housing is important, but I also ask that we think about a tool that might be available for individuals who have some of these harassment or circumstances that that required them to move and leave, that have devastated, families financially, that we think about a little fund or something that might be able to help in those situations. I think that that's something, again, that the Fair Housing Council might be able to help with and to creatively do. And I will end with, whatever you do, don't forget to inspect it. My father has a saying that I think is so true. You can't expect what you don't inspect. So make sure that you do the follow-up to make sure that whatever it is that is decided and how those funds will be used, that the double checking, the triple checking, that when no one is looking, checking, that it will happen, to make sure that they are not misused, because TIFs have been used in a way that is not in Milwaukee, that is not always the best for future generations, and has not always provided adequate development across the entire city. It's been a very biased and way that things have been done. So I just ask you to do that. And I will end again with, you have done my heart well today. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Taylor. Sarah, was there anybody else on the list?
That is it.
So with that, we'll close public comments at this time, and we'll go back to the table and we'll try to close out this item. We do have a motion, is that correct, on the table? And a second?
That is correct.
We do.
Yeah, we do. Okay, so Trustee Ursink and then Trustee Bachhorst, if you had your hand up.
Maybe Trustee Bachhorst is going in the same position here, but I'd be open to making the proposed amendment about working with the CDA, asking the CDA to work with the Metropolitan Milwaukee Fair Housing Council as they develop a plan for these funds from the extension.
Did you want to also include Senator Taylor's request about Milwaukee County, working with Milwaukee County?
I just probably need a little bit more definition around who we're working with around Milwaukee County. I don't want to add too much to this where
Sure.
it complicates.
I believe it was the Office of African American. I don't know the exact.
Senator Taylor, maybe you could.
The Office of African American Affairs was what I mentioned, but I think what I'm saying more than anything is that the county executive's commitment to equity and inclusion throughout the county makes, for whatever efforts he's doing, for you to work with them collaboratively in whatever departments he deems most important to mimic, or not to mimic, but to complement whatever you all do. And I think it's a way to also find out how you can best influence everyone else in the county to follow your lead.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. So, I mean, it sounds like working with the Office of the
African American Affairs.
African American Affairs. Yeah. Are you? Is that?
Are you making an amendment?
Yep. I'm going to make an amendment.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
And is it a friendly? Is it a friendly? Can we just? I don't have a problem with it.
If we have unanimous consent, it could be a friendly amendment.
Does anybody, can you restate what the amendment is just quickly, and then we can see if we have unanimous consent?
Yep. So what I have recorded is to ask the CDA to work with the Fair Housing Council and the Office of the African American Affairs.
Milwaukee County. Milwaukee County.
Milwaukee County.
Okay, does anybody have any, does anyone oppose that amendment? Okay, so with unanimous consent, we'll add it to the original motion. And second.
Make sure, yeah, okay, the minutes would reflect it though. Okay, that's fine.
Madam President, before you vote, if I could just make sure, please put Milwaukee County Office of African American Affairs.
Yep.
Okay, because there's one in the city.
Thank you. Okay, Sarah, would you like to read the motion that's on the table?
Yes. So it is to extend TID 1 for purposes of affordable housing and to recommend the CDA develop a plan for utilization of the funds over the next 12 months, and to ask the CDA to work with the Fair Housing Council and Office of African American Affairs with Milwaukee County.
Milwaukee County Office of America. Just Milwaukee County.
Works with it when
Hi, it's the Office on African American Affairs. This is Ray Johnson. I work in that office.
Thank you so much for the correction.
You're welcome.
Okay, so do we have any other discussion? And if not, we will go ahead and take roll call. Sarah?
Yep. Trustee Backhorst?
Yes.
Trustee Menta?
Aye.
Trustee Warren?
Aye.
Trustee Stokebrand?
Aye.
Trustee Ursing?
Yes.
Trustee Carpenter?
Aye.
President Rosick?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Well done, everyone.
Thank you. I appreciate everybody's effort and all the comments tonight. I've definitely learned a lot, and I'm sure our board did as well.
Definitely. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. If it's okay, does anyone need a 5-minute break?
Yes,
okay.
please.
And Sarah, what time is it?
It is 9:28, so we could come back about 9:35.
Okay, so we will now take a recess and come back at 9:35.
Thank you.
Okay, I have 9:36. If board members could turn on their cameras, we could get started. That'd be greatly appreciated.
Hey, I'm here. I'm just finishing dinner. I'll be
Sure,
here.
sure. Okay, so we have at least 5 here.
I'm here.
Okay,
I'm
wonderful.
meeting
Let's
as well.
reconvene.
Okay, welcome back. It is, Sarah, the time,
9:36.
9:36. We will reconvene the meeting of the village board. We are moving on to our next agenda item, which, let me just pull it up. I'm sorry.
The consent agenda.
We are now on the consent agenda. Items under the consent agenda may be acted upon by one motion. If in the judgment of any village board member, a consent agenda item needs discussion, the item can be placed in the items removed from the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Okay.
Motion by trustee Carpenter, seconded by trustee Ursing. Do we have any items for removal?
Yes, this is trustee Backhorst. I'd like to take out the village board meeting minutes of February 15th.
Okay, which item is that, Sarah?
And C? No, B.
5B.
5B, okay. Anything else? Okay, do we approve the motion, the consent agenda with?
Oh, wait, can I pull the item on the parking? I'm sorry, outdoor seating.
Is that G?
Oh, I guess there's a whole bunch of them.
It's 5G and then it's 1 through 7. So I don't know if there's a specific one, trustee Menta.
I just wanted to make sure, I just wanted to know if any of them were changed from last year, so.
Just pull the whole thing then.
No, just do the whole thing.
Yep. Is Bart on the call still?
Well, hold on.
Bart's there, yeah.
Okay, so.
All right, just pull the whole thing, yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of items C and G?
B and G, yeah.
And G. Do we have a motion?
So move. Oh, we do, I think. Don't we?
Do we need another motion now that we pulled those?
No.
Because we had a motion before
Had
that.
a motion. Mhm.
Okay, so motion and a second. Sarah, do you want to take the roll call? Oh, you're on mute. Sarah, you're on mute.
Sorry. Trustee Warren.
Aye.
Trustee Stokebrand.
Aye.
Trustee Menta.
Aye.
Trustee Ursink.
Aye.
Trustee Carpenter.
Aye.
Trustee Backhorst. Trustee Backhorst.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. President Rosick.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, and now we will take up items
5B first.
5B.
Village board minutes. Trustee Backhorst.
Okay, I have quite a few, and I know that we have 2 items on our closed session meeting. So I was just going to ask if we could defer the acceptance of these until next time so I can send my updates to Sarah, and then we could go from there.
That would be helpful. Thank you.
Yeah,
Because I wasn't at that meeting, so I can't tell you if they're right or wrong. So a deferral would be easier.
Yep. So I moved to defer item 5B.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion by trustee Backhorst, second by trustee Warren. Any discussion? Seeing none. Sarah, go ahead and take the roll.
Yep. Trustee Menta.
Aye.
Trustee Warren.
Aye.
Trustee Backhorst.
Aye.
Trustee Ursink.
Yes.
Trustee Stokebrand.
Aye.
Trustee Carpenter.
Aye.
President Rosick.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
All right, we'll now take up item G. Trustee Amenta, do you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to know if these were all the same as last year, if any of them had been modified.
I can answer that. The only modifications to note would be the draft and vessel in cloud red, and it actually relates to the installation of lighting. The seating, excuse me, the seating is the same as last year, but both of them would like to install festoon lighting above the sidewalk. It actually was installed last year, but we didn't take a strong enforcement action on it. So your approval tonight would allow them to do the lighting as they had installed last year. That will require design review board approval. And we've already received an application from Cloud and Red to take that to design review board. So The seating itself will not change, but the installation will include lighting for both of those applications. And then of note, both Cloud Red and Three Lions Pub are proposing to extend beyond their storefront. They had similar approvals last year. Cloud Red has their emails on file for permissions of the property owners. We're still waiting for permission from Power Cycle for Three Lions, but that did come in last year, so we're expecting that they'll also do it. So yeah, Draft and Vestlin Cloud Red will include lighting, and then Cloud Red and Three Lions will extend beyond their current storefronts. But in general, the remainder are all as approved from last year.
Okay, I'll move approval.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by
Second.
Trustee Menta, second by Trustee Warren. Sarah, go ahead and take the roll.
Yep. Trustee Bachhorst.
Yes.
Trustee Stokebrand.
Aye.
Trustee Ursink.
Yes.
Trustee Carpenter.
Aye.
Trustee Menta.
Aye.
Trustee Warren.
Aye.
President Rosick.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, so that completes the consent agenda's removed items. So we'll move on to number 7, public hearing, which there is none of tonight. And then we'll move on to citizens to be heard. Are there any citizens that have registered to be heard tonight?
There is not under general citizens to be heard. So it was all pretty much for the TID extension.
Okay, and nobody has their hand raised?
Nope. If there's any citizens at this time. Nope. I think you're good to move on.
Okay. Next agenda item is new business 9A. Consider amendment to crossing guard agreement. Rebecca.
Chief Nimmer was going to be on the call. I don't know if he wants to unmute. This is also something that the school district had requested the village board defer until the March 15th meeting if the board was so inclined.
Yes, I believe, thank you for reminding me that Dr. Davis had requested that we defer to give him more time to discuss internally. So with that, I would go ahead and move to defer if there's a second.
I'll second.
Okay, motion to defer by President Rozak, second by Trustee Carpenter. Any further discussion? If Trustee Menta.
Can I ask that the police department keep track of the CSO hours that are being dedicated to crossing guard duties?
Yes, we'd be happy to.
Okay, Trustee Bachhorst.
Yeah, I see Steph Sylvia has her hand up, so I don't know if we were going to go right into roll call, but just wanted to notify you of that.
Sarah, I can't see hands up at the moment, but
yeah, she does have her hand up. So Steph, if you want to unmute.
Hey, yeah, sorry guys, real quick. On one of the, I think it was H is Three Lions Pub is waiting to see if they can pull a permit for an extension.
Yep,
and that's listed under that was listed under like the outdoor seating.
Yep, so they were approved under item H. They weren't pulled, so they were approved with the consent agenda, so they're all set.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so remind me where we're at.
We have a motion if we're ready to vote to defer the amendment with the crossing guard agreement.
Okay, sounds good. Any further discussion? Seeing none, go ahead and take the roll.
Trustee Stokebrand.
Aye.
Trustee Bachhorst.
Yes.
Trustee Warren.
Aye.
Trustee Carpenter.
Aye.
Trustee Menta.
Aye.
Trustee Ursink.
Aye.
President Rosick.
Aye.
Motion to defer passes 7-0.
Thank you. We'll move on to.
We are under reports of village officials.
Okay, and then we're going into closed session?
Correct.
Yes.
And then any items for future consideration and then closed session.
Okay. So reports of village officials. I do not have a report tonight. Any trustee that has a report? Trustee Stokebrand.
The virtual open house on the comprehensive plan will be on St. Patrick's Day. I don't know if maybe Bart has more information. I think it's at 6:30 to 8 or something like that. And I'm sure the village website will have, I'll hand it off to Bart.
Yeah, that is correct. So the Plan Commission and Vanderwall and myself will be hosting the virtual open house for the comprehensive plan. It's 6:30 to 7:30, but I would anticipate it might go a little longer. Hope we have good participation. I'm also coordinating a village-wide postcard to be mailed out to all residents that get the Shorewood today. So we're working on that to get the word out this week. And then we'll also further promote it in village managers memo with social media, but any help that we can get from trustees or anyone would be greatly appreciated.
Great, thank you so much, Bart and Trustee Stokbrand. Any other trustee have a report? Trustee Bachhorst and then Ursink.
I have two, and they're both related to Planning Commission. Number one, the Planning Commission passed, I think it was 5-1, the parking exemption for the 3 parcels that are located on Capitol Drive, the purchase of the Sun Seekers and other 2. So depending on where that developer goes from here on out, we may or may not be seeing that in front of the village board. Of course, if they're asking for TIF, we will. And if not, I believe regarding our zoning code and everything else. It could be mistaken, but maybe Trustee Stokbrand, since she's on that commission, could correct me if I'm wrong on that. And then regarding the other CDA, or I mean, sorry, Planning Commission related item, doesn't have anything to do with us here necessarily, but I think I may have mentioned to you all that I was part of a mock Planning Commission. It was a part of a class. The chair of the ICC, Mayor Kennedy of Glendale, teaches class at MSOE, and he invited myself and a village president, Wanda, I forget her last name, it's not coming to me, from Brown Deer. And yep, that's it. And Mayor Brooks from South Milwaukee, and Mayor Devine from West Dallas, and we served as planning commissioners. It was a lot of fun. The projects were pretty interesting. In fact, one of them from the students, and a lot of the projects were projects that have either passed in the past, they're just practicing being architects and engineers, and being in front of elected and other represented bodies. But one of them was the bridge over Capitol Drive that here in Shorewood. So that was quite fascinating, and they all did a great job. So hopefully in the future, maybe some of you will be invited to attend as that as a commissioner as well. But just want to say it was great. It was a great opportunity to see face to face a variety of our partners within the county, and I can't wait to share with them the vote that we had this evening on the affordable housing and extension of the TIF, because they will all be very interested as leaders in their communities as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Before Trustee Ursink, I think you were next, but Stokbrand, did you have anything that you wanted to respond? I know she.
Right, and she cut out, so I'm not quite sure I understood, but if you were asking about the project that was asking for the parking exemption, it's my understanding that they will go next to the design review board with that project. They would only come before the village board if they request TIF funding with a TIF application, but I would let Director Bart or Manager Ewald correct me on that if I'm wrong.
Okay, doesn't sound like anybody's correcting, so we will go ahead and move on to Trustee Ursink.
Yeah, thank you. So the bid has recently started the initial conversation about potentially hosting our feast, the Shorewood Feast, at in the beginning of September, as long as everything goes as planned with COVID and the vaccines. We're really hoping that we can bring the feast back to Shorewood, and really excited to do that. So that's in the initial kind of conversation, and we will keep the village up to date as plans kind of come together for that.
Thank you, Trustee Ursink. Trustee Warren.
Yeah, I just wanted to report back. This Saturday, there was really great turnout, including many members of the Conservation Committee, behind the pavilion at Hubbard Park, to clear out an invasive species, buckthorn, which is really, there's a lot of it in that area. And we put in a good couple of hours along with a lot of other volunteers and cleared out a big chunk of it. There's still a lot left, so there will be probably more opportunities to do this, but it was really nice to get out there, really nice to work outside, and know that we're doing something good for our ecosystem. So just wanted to report back on that.
Thank you, Trustee Warren. Any other reports? Okay, we'll move on to Village Manager.
Good evening. Just wanted to check in. Village Hall is open to the public. However, we are encouraging people to continue with social distancing and when at all possible, doing their communication virtually or over the phone. With that, I wanted to check in with the board to see whether you wanted to continue meeting in person or via Zoom.
Great, I'll call upon board members. My preference is to continue meeting on Zoom. Did you check for the ICC, how long they're going to be doing?
Yep, they will only be meeting again in person for purposes of the MMSD, determining the MMSD commissioner in June. It's very likely that they would go back to virtual following that. And if it's an uncontested race site, they may try to find a way to do it via Zoom at this time.
Okay, so at least through June, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, Trustee Carpenter?
I think that this is one of the, there are some silver linings in COVID, and I do think that this is one of them. You know, tonight we had 95 people that were on our Zoom call. And I think that in some ways, Zoom has allowed for additional participation that we maybe wouldn't be able to typically have. So for the time being, you know, obviously we wouldn't be able to have 95 people together for quite a while. So, you know, I feel like the Zoom option is something that I'd like to stick with at least until June.
Thank you, Trustee Carpenter. Trustee Ursink, and then Trustee Warren.
Yeah, I echo that. I feel like this is, you know, this is working out really well for us in the community. I think we still have to discuss what we want to do as far as upgrading our video capabilities in Village Hall once we get back to meeting in Village Hall, because I think we've seen the benefit of allowing way more people in a kind of a live, in this live stream to be able to interact with local government. So I'd encourage us to think about this in a twofold situation. One, we want to go back and then upgrading our capabilities as far as live streaming and our video capabilities once we are back in Village Hall.
Thank you, Trustee Ursink. Trustee Warren?
I agree with the points earlier made. You know, this allowed a lot of people to participate in the process. That's fantastic. I mean, on the flip side, one more point. I mean, until vaccinations are widely available to anyone who wants to get a vaccination, I don't think that I don't see any way to get back in person. I think we have to at least hit that threshold before we even start this discussion. So I don't think we're particularly close at this point. Unfortunately, I wish we were, but I think it's going to be at least a few more months.
Thank you, Trustee Warren. Trustee Bockhorst?
Yeah, thank you. I echo a lot of the sentiments tonight. I'd say going forward, once we do get back in the same room, we do offer a hybrid option, a Zoom option for those who cannot participate, or as Trustee, I think we're thinking both Warren had mentioned, look at our digital capacity and see what we can do. One thing though that could be done, one of the hiccups of the Zoom is that it is difficult when let me step back. A lot of communities, including Milwaukee, do require that people who chair meetings attend in person, at least to chair, because then there's technical equipment and you're in the same room and you can hear and you know, the recording capacity is a lot more enhanced, et cetera. And then you don't have background noise and, you know, tin and stuff like that. But in the absence of, so that would be something that potentially I'd want to look for. And, you know, I know it would be a little difficult with committee chairs. You'd have to, you know, leave and then come back, but that would be but I'm willing to forego that, of course, you know, just because of the logistics and the fact that we do all of our committee meetings sequentially and right before our board meeting. So yeah, until it's safe and the health department has deemed otherwise, I'm all for keeping it remotely.
Okay, thank you so much. Anybody else have any comments? If not, does that give you enough information, Rebecca? Okay. Is there any other reports? If not, we will move on to future agenda items. Does anyone have a future agenda item? All right.
I do. Well, it's on the agenda. I don't know if you're going around.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So, so when we have we've heard about conflicts, you know, between and amongst neighbors in this village, and In the past, we have had a mediation program. We still might have it. I don't recall seeing it in the budget in the last couple of years, but it is something that back in 2013 and 2014, we did have in the budget, and it was a small amount. I think it was only 5,000. And I'm not even sure if it was ever really, robustly used, but I'm not saying that would be the end all be all to any kind of neighborhood issues, but sometimes having a third party, a neutral third party can be helpful. I know that there have been, some individuals who have contacted a variety of us as board members, and, we've all been part of the emails and heard some of the exchanges, but I feel it's I feel that those kind of situations, I'm not sure what our board responsibilities are in that if it's not as a board. So I would think that we would want to have some kind of professional guidance if we were to become active in neighborhood disputes, because I think what it does when only one or two people, help out or take on, it doesn't necessarily offer the broad range of possibilities that exist when you have the transparency and the whole group or an organization helping with them. So I guess, Rebecca, do we still have that neighborhood mediation program? And if not, I guess it's something I'd like to look into.
Okay, hold on, wait. Before Rebecca, you can answer that, but then after Rebecca does her answering, if you could just propose a future agenda item and get a second, and then we can have further discussion. Go ahead, Rebecca.
Yes, we do still offer the mediation program. There just needs to be two willing parties.
Gotcha. Well, that makes sense. Okay, well then I don't have it since we have it. That makes a lot of sense. I guess what I would offer is that we do have a little bit more communication on that and that we push that out as well. So that our residents know that exists and that
happy to
members do as well. But that's all I have. Thank you. I don't think I need a motion for that. Okay.
You don't need a motion for a future agenda item, correct?
I think she could list that in the village manager's memo at her discretion, and we could share it with the school board. And the rest of us have all heard tonight that we have that program. So it's something we can offer the community when they do reach out to us.
Okay, so not a future agenda item. Yes, Trustee Stokebrand.
Sounds like it should be somewhere on the village website. Is it right?
We're actually developing a resource list at this time, so it will be released with that.
Thank you.
Trustee Ursink.
Just piggying off of that, what as a village board, we've been tasked with, some of the residents have asked us to step in this matter. Is there anything that we can do?
Can I just say this is future agenda items? So I'm sorry, but if you want it, you can put it on it. You can make a motion to put it on a future agenda to discuss.
Okay, let's make a motion to put on a future agenda the discussion of neighbor conflict.
Sure.
Do we have a second? Trustee Buckhurst seconded it? Okay, so a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I mean, I can get on board with this. I'm certainly on board with this, and I think that it would be nice to have an update as to where these resources. I mean, and maybe this is part of the motion. Maybe we probably don't need to put it in, but I'm really also looking for an update on where the resources are, because we're talking village manager's memo, building out the website. So it'd be nice to kind of see as part of that discussion, hey, here's what we have out there, so we all kind of know where to refer people and where our resources are within the village.
Great. And we'll just make a note of that on the future agenda item when it comes to the board if it passes. Trustee Carpenter.
Yeah, can we just repeat that the motion? It seemed a little bit vague, and I just want to make sure that I'm understanding what because I think I'm agreeing with the concept, but I just want to make sure I'm understanding what.
It was a little sloppy. I apologize. But it's just essentially to discuss neighbor conflict and the situation with Nicole and Liz, what's happening right now. I don't know how to define that. If there's a better term to define that, I'd be open to that.
Would you be open to maybe determining resolutions for neighbor conflicts, or
a better title? Just
how about a process to deal with neighbor conflicts? And I would say strategic initiatives would be a great spot for this.
Yeah, I agree.
Second.
Sarah, do you want to read the motion for a future agenda item?
So this is what I have now, is to discuss a process to deal with neighbor conflict at strategic initiatives.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Trustee Stoker?
Seems to me like something that could be covered in a memo from village staff to the trustees. I don't really see a reason to add this as an agenda item.
Okay. Any other discussion? Seeing none, go ahead and take the vote.
Trustee Warren,
Aye.
Trustee Stokebrand,
No.
Trustee Amenta,
No.
Trustee Bachhorst,
Yes.
Trustee Ursink,
Yes.
Trustee Carpenter,
Aye.
President Rosick.
No.
Motion passes 4-3.
Okay, great. Any other future agenda items? Seeing none, Sarah, our next, do we need a?
I need a motion into closed session. If somebody could read that long little verbiage there.
I move to convene into closed session to confer with legal counsel for the governmental body pursuant to WISSTAT 1985 1E, to confer with legal counsel for bargaining reasons regarding the police union agreement, and pursuant to WISSTAT 1985 1G, to confer with legal counsel on strategy regarding pending litigation regarding Roundy's assessment.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we need any discussion?
No.
Seeing none, go ahead and take the roll call.
Yep. Trustee Carpenter,
Aye.
Trustee Bachhorst, Trustee Bachhorst.
Yes. Sorry.
That's okay. Trustee Amenta,
Yep.
Trustee Ursink,
Yes.
Trustee Warren,
Aye.
Trustee Stokebrand,
Aye.
President Rosick.
Yes.
All right.
Now, are we leaving this and coming?
You're leaving this link and then you are going to your closed session link, okay?
Where is the closed session? Trying to find-
Rebecca emailed it to everybody.
Oh. Uh-oh.
So it should be in your emails.
Are you able to, okay, you did email it?
Yep, it came from Rebecca. I will have her re-email it to everybody.
Sounds great. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Oh, can Becky text that to me, please?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.